Well, what do we have here? Valentine's Day, a time of fright, and ghouls, and ghosts, and evil wait. What day is it? My, oh mother my, how history likes to repeat itself. Shazam! Well, regardless, I can't think of a better time to remake one of my oldest videos, now that I have much more experience and technical know-how. And well, I've got some time to kill anyway, so why not have a bit of a pick-me-up, huh? You get the gist by this point, villains from any media qualify, and if you're concerned about spoilers, there are timestamps in the description for convenience. So, without further ado, it's showtime.
Then it sounds to me like it's time to rumble.
Indeed, but it is you who will take the tumble.
I'm sorry, hon, but did you just sing that?
Of course I did not. Wait, yes I did. I'm sounding shrill against my will and cannot stop this singing. And in my ears I swear I hear a quite distinctive ringing. This silly game is very lame and someone's going to pay.
An unknown force, but where's the source that has us in its sway?
Who is doing this to us? And on this we must concur.
The dastardly, despicable, disturbingly inexplicable, and imminently kickable. That's guilty rotten rat is.
In a world that's said to be as dangerous and full of adventure as the land of Ooh from Adventure Time, you'd expect there to be quite a number of great villains. But you'd be wrong. Most of the villains in Adventure Time kind of suck, actually. On the other hand, Gargoyles! Oh yeah, the greatest rival to Batman the Animated Series. The animation is incredible, the storytelling is gripping, the action is brutal, and there's tons of property damage to go with it, and it's all tied together to some of the best and most satisfying character writing I've seen from a cartoon of this era, which, as you may have guessed, brings us to the first contender on this list.
It may prove difficult to find the necessary manpower. This castle has a bad reputation. The locals consider it haunted.
You know the answer to that, Owen. Pay a man enough, and he'll walk barefoot into hell.
The Gargoyles make many fierce enemies throughout this series, but none are as cool or as charming as David Xanatos, the resident evil billionaire akin to Lex Luthor. When the series begins, he doesn't even position himself as a villain, even offering to be the Gargoyles' ally so he can use them to his advantage. That's what makes Xanatos special. He's not evil for evil's sake, what he's instead is motivated. He does what he wants, and any evil deeds along the way are just a means to an end. Like when he went back in time to bestow his past self for the methods to become incredibly rich in the future, or when he broke the pack out of jail so that Fox would be granted early parole. This guy is not just suave, he's a snake. No matter what happens, he always has the perfect story prepared to excuse himself of any wrongdoing. And anytime another character calls him out on acting strange, he immediately busts out a believable reason without even flinching. He's like if Iron Man and Batman were fused together and given a god complex. Heck, Xanatos even looks a lot like Tony Stark and has his own robot suit and everything, modeled after Goliath. Wait a minute, David and Goliath? He's cunning, manipulative, and a perfect foil to the honest and selfless Gargoyles. If it means power for himself, Xanatos will pursue it no matter what. But then, that begins to shift in Season 2. When Fox gets out of jail, she's picked up by Xanatos, who asks her to marry him. The proposal comes off as polite, yet emotionless, as is expected of Xanatos. But then when Fox is turned into a werewolf by the eye of Odin that Xanatos gave her and is at risk of dying, that's when his demeanor begins to change. For the first time in the series, he isn't motivated by what's best for himself, but rather by what's best for someone else. And then when this guy Oberon comes to take his and Fox's newborn child away from them, Xanatos is suddenly put into this very sympathetic situation of trying to protect his new family from this literal god, because now Xanatos has something in his life that's more important than money or power. It's a touching narrative showing how even someone as cold and heartless as Xanatos can still start over and live a happy life with people he genuinely cares about. Huh, weird, I just felt a chill. Even Xanatos seems a bit caught off guard by the whole thing, because even in a series like Gargoyles, there are no monsters in this world, just people with problems, emotions, and ambitions.
So now you know my weakness. Only you would regard love as a weakness.
And imminently kickable. That's guilty rotten rat is.
Ah, Danny Phantom, the surprisingly effective marriage of Spider-Man and Ghostbusters. And like all shows of this breed, the absolute best part is the massive rogues gallery. Favorites include Walker, Freak Show, Skulker, Vlad, as well as Danny's ultimate enemy, the Box Ghost, master of all containers, cardboard, and squares. But I gotta stick with my guns on this one.
Child! You have freed me! Technus! Ghost Master of Science and Electrical Technology!
Ever had a virus before? Ever had your computer literally floated? Wait a sec, that has happened to me before. Well, technology is a powerful thing, and Technus exploits that like nothing else. Whether he's absorbing all the tech in the area to build himself a huge mech, playing online video games, assembling a satellite to spread his influence all over the world, or shouting his name for all to hear.
I am Technus, manipulator of machines, lord of all gadgetry, wizard of integrated circuitry. Once again, I, Technus, master of all things electronic and beeping. I, Technus, am totally frying your bacon. I, Technus, am getting tired of getting beaten by you. I, the new improved Technus, have reached the next level. I am Technus, master of technology and destroyer of worlds. Then I, the new improved Technus, shall be the hip, modern ruler of the world. In this new body, they shall never know it's me. Technus! I am Technus, master of all things mechanical. Behold, the new Technus 2.0. I, Technus, am free at last! Tremble before the power of Technus 2.0! Technus 2.0 will escape to fight another, for I am Technus, master of
long-winded introductions! Do you ever stop talking about yourself?
Now listen here! Young whippersnapper, I, Technus, am hip and...
To go with his theme of technology, his appearance updates a lot during the series. He goes from a ghostly mad scientist to a huge golem of corrupted technology, to a computer bug, to a serious-looking technomancer, before finally fusing with Skilker in the future as his new operating system. Technus definitely takes the cake for the hammiest villain in the series. His best appearance is in the episode Teacher of the Year, where he finds himself learning how to play an online video game from Tucker, who somehow doesn't recognize him. I mean, I guess it is a video game where you can look any way you want, but come on, Tucker, you really had no idea that was him? Technus' face is literally the only thing that does not change between the majority of his forms, and you saw him earlier that night. God, he looks like Technus, he sounds like Technus, he said, I am Technus, like Technus would. Who is this guy? Though thankfully, Technus was senile enough to give Tucker a hint.
Then I, Technus, shall use my ghost powers and newfound gaming prowess to win the game and spread my intellect to every machine in the world! My, that was a long speech.
What? Technus?
Do you get it? He's old because he's like a piece of outdated technology. It's no wonder he keeps getting hacked so often. And if it weren't for that, he'd probably be the most dangerous recurring villain in the series. Given his set of powers allowing him to hijack and transmute technology into whatever he wants, he should be every bit as powerful as Undergrowth, but instead he gets too distracted by style and his own ego to be a real threat. Perhaps that's what made him memorable. Instead of just antagonizing Tucker from the start in Teacher of the Year, he opted to trick him instead because he was fascinated by the video game environment, which leads to this odd alliance between the two of them before the truth is revealed. He's also one of the few ghosts that can't be defeated in a straightforward manner, whether that be exploiting a flaw in his firewall, trapping him in a glitch in the game, or just blowing him up, which honestly shouldn't have worked, but I guess he was in space. As even if his body is destroyed, he can just hitchhike onto another piece of tech and hide there for a while. Ah yes, the true evil was sitting right there in our pockets the whole time. And isn't that the true meaning of Christmas? Blah 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 blah.
And imminently kick a ball. Let's get him out and rest.
The Kirby series has a ton of great villains to choose from, whether it be Marks, the Squeak Squad, Haltman, Magalore, or any incarnation of the Dark Matter. And they are all awesome, but for my money, nothing beats the King. Oh yeah. As the self-appointed ruler of Dreamland, King Dedede is greedy, gluttonous, and free to do whatever he wants. At least that wasn't until Kirby came around to give him a big ol' reality check, thus sparking a strong rivalry, with Dedede trying to beat Kirby at every turn. He faces Kirby in the ring, he challenges him to an eating competition, and the anime takes it even further with him hiring assassins to go out and kill Kirby, all just so he can supplant him as the town hero. He also has a country accent in that show, which always puzzled me, but it does also make for one of the most hilarious performances in anime history.
I am a superstar warrior!
It's the director's cut.
Look at that!
Shush.
He serves as Kirby's designated archenemy throughout the series, and as such, no Kirby game is complete without a Dedede fight, whether it be genuine, a misunderstanding, or he's just being mind-controlled, which happens a lot. Like, a lot. Dark Matter, Yin Yarn, Taranza, the Dark Hearts, the octopus monster from the anime, he was even cloned one time. I guess it makes sense, since the Good King's villainous side has sort of taken a backseat to him being real chummy with Kirby in more recent installments, even helping him out in certain situations. But, putting aside all the silly antics and petty games, there was a time when Dedede got serious. Kirby Superstar Ultra's Revenge of the King, a souped-up version of Spring Breeze with stronger enemies, more powerful bosses, and an incarnation of Dedede that was absolutely done with Kirby's chicanery. As you stomp through pretty much all of Dedede's forces from Cabula to Waddle Dee, you eventually find yourself in an electrified cage with a single hammer that you are meant to take. And it is upon grabbing it that Dedede comes forth, clad in mask and armed with his secret weapon, the new and improved DDD Hammer. Among other things, this handy-dandy contraption can fire missiles, make Dedede spin around at extreme speed, and ruin the average Smash player's day. It's an incredible battle. So many entries in the series treat Dedede like a joke, so to see him get this real about taking out Kirby once and for all is really amazing. Heck, the whole hammer-on-hammer thing is a direct parallel to each encounter with Meta Knight, where you had to grab a sword first, almost like it wouldn't be a true victory unless it's a fair fight. So a fight you shall fight, and a fair you shall bear, as he smites the good king into the bare air.
And imminently kick a ball. Let's get him out and active.
Ah, the Master Manipulator, the unpredictable one, the one that's always outplaying our favorite heroes and keeping them on their toes. Presenting themselves as always one step ahead through their simultaneously intelligent and dastardly plots, with their endless detestability making their eventual downfall all the sweeter. Now, I know I had someone in mind for this entry, but they seem to be escaping me at the moment. Why can't I remember? I know it had to be some kind of vile, slippery trickster, but who could possibly fit the bill?
I think I know a guy!
Alright, so far, this list has been pretty tame. We've had villains that are on here by virtue of just how fun they are to watch on screen, but sometimes that's not enough. Sometimes, the best villains are the ones that can just absolutely terrify you in a really menacing way. Which brings us to Bill, the deranged and incredibly charismatic main antagonist of Gravity Falls, which was already no stranger to the supernatural. There's mutants, monsters, aliens, gnomes, oh god, the gnomes. And yet Bill manages to trump all of that. He conjures weirdness out of thin air, animals, he rearranges somebody's face holes.
Family picture.
Bill is the ultimate embodiment of discord, always messing with the other characters in crazy, insane ways. Like when Dipper is trying to hack into a laptop associated with the author of the journals, and so Bill shows up to offer him the code in exchange for a puppet. And when he accepts, the puppet Bill decides to take his Dipper himself. Whoops. Bill is slimy, scheming, and save for one of his half-dozen weaknesses, nigh invincible. It is impressive just how much authority Bill is able to command while on screen, especially in the finale when he manages to enter the physical world and make reality his toy. The sky turns a blood red, Gravity Falls becomes infested with monsters, and all the townspeople are petrified and assembled into a macabre throne of human agony. By all accounts, Bill simply being here means game over, as there is no one that can beat him in a fight without exploiting some weak point of his. You can't mess around when dealing with Bill, because challenging him and failing comes with harsh consequences. When Ford misses his shot with his quantum destabilizer, he gets King Midas. When Dipper tries to fight Bill by himself, the journals are burned. And when Stan messes up the Zodiac ritual, everyone except the Pine Settler turn into horrified banners. And if it weren't for the convenient barrier, keeping him within the bounds of Gravity Falls, they might not have even had the opportunity to challenge him. Time after time, it's shown that victory against Bill is impossible, and so when they finally do find a way of taking him out, his defeat is the most satisfying one of the series, as all his power is stripped away and he's left with nothing but his empty promises.
Deadly!
He's basically that one troll who gets promoted to admin and then screws up the server.
And imminently kick a ball. Let's get him out and active.
Power. Absolute power corrupts absolutely, as they say. And in most stories, when the protagonist is bestowed with great power, that also comes with a great responsibility that they use it to do what is right. The hero is gifted, but what truly makes them special is their desire to do the right thing. So what happens when that power falls into the wrong hands? The Death Note. You write someone's name in it, that person dies. And to come into the possession of anyone else, its threat level will be at least manageable, but in the hands of Light Yagami, or as the police in L, the greatest detective in the world know him as, Kira, it is the most dangerous weapon in history. Because as a resident genius with a nihilistic worldview and a god complex, Light is the absolute worst person to be gifted with this power.
Several Death Notes have made their way into the human world in the past, but you're the first to have written this many names. Look at how many people you've killed in only 5 days. Most are reluctant to write this much.
And boy, does that determination get substantiated throughout the series, as every other person to use the Death Note has comparatively been much easier to catch. We've seen slippery villains and we've seen smooth villains, but Light is on another level. It's one thing to just say that a character is smarter than show them doing, like, math in order to bullshit their way out of a situation, but in Death Note, you believe Light's genius. A good example is the bus scene. Light suspects that somebody is following him, so he stages the bus jacking using the Death Note to find out the stalker's identity. First, he calls up somebody for a date, so it wouldn't be suspicious for him to be on a bus. Next, he sits in the second to last seat to guarantee that his stalker sits right behind him, allowing him to trick the man into handing over his ID. And finally, after the jacker boards the bus, Light drops a piece of the Death Note so he would pick it up, thus causing him to see Ryuk, freak out, get off the bus, and die. Exactly as planned. Another time, Light suspects that cameras have been placed in his room, so he hides a mini TV in a bag of chips so he can continue to kill criminals while appearing to just be doing schoolwork to the cameras. And most impressively, after giving up ownership of the Death Note, thus removing all his memories of being Kira, Light joins forces with L to find the man acting as Kira currently. And then when he gets the Death Note back, he uses a piece of the Death Note and a small pin hidden in his watch to kill his stand-in while L is right there. It is cathartic to see Light win the way he does. It embodies that feeling when you completely outplay somebody in a video game and make them look like a chump. That's the perfect way to describe it. The whole killing thing is like a game to Light. Each encounter is a new enemy he has to vanquish, every ally is a new obstacle he has to work around, and every situation is a new puzzle he has to sort out. You'd think, being the protagonist, Light would still be sympathetic despite also being the villain, but no. When he's not acting, Light only becomes more and more heartless as the series goes on, almost like his actions are slowly but surely emptying out his soul.
What is truly evil is the power to kill people. And any person who has come to possess this kind of power is cursed. No matter how you use it, no true happiness can be obtained like that, not by killing other people.
And so when the finale rolls around and Light loses his gambit for the first time, it actually feels unsatisfying. Which is odd because it's very satisfying to see his state and Higuchi go down, but seeing Light run out his luck and become cornered feels almost wrong. And that's impressive, because it means that despite being a mass murderer with a twisted sense of justice who kills innocent people along the way, Light was able to keep the viewer on his side throughout the series. Because after all, you want to root for the hero when the villain is simply the hero of their own story.
And imminently kick a ball. Let's get him out and rest.
Speaking of which, tell me, how do you make a villain sympathetic? Usually the answer a lot of creators come to is to just give them a sad backstory to explain why they're evil.
I was born with rabies, and my parents didn't love me because they both had mono. So now I do stuff like this.
Here's what I think. What makes a lot of people cheer on the protagonist is being able to see them struggle and face adversity, meanwhile the antagonist is completely untouchable. So what happens when the shoe is on the other foot? Or glove, in this case. Even years later, Avengers Infinity War remains one of the most thought-provoking films of the entire franchise. And it's all thanks to Thanos, as he goes on his quest to collect all 6 Infinity Stones, meanwhile the Avengers, Guardians of the Galaxy, Spider-Man, and everyone try their damnedest to stop him. It's the typical hero versus villain formula. The villain wants power, and the heroes can't let that slide. But then as the film continues, the way we see Thanos begins to shift as he starts talking about why he's doing all this. You know it, I know it. By killing half of the universe's inhabitants, then there would be more vital resources left for those who remain, thus preventing inevitable total collapse via overpopulation. That is his ethos, which he attained when that exact thing happened to his planet. There are many scenes in the film where Thanos takes a breather to explain why what he's doing is right, and you get a real sense that he truly believes in the merit of his quest. Even while he's orchestrating these terrible things, he's not without heart, like when he purges Gamora's planet and adopts her as his own daughter when she had nowhere else to go. And then once it's time for him to obtain the Soul Stone with Gamora in tow, he is told that the only way to get it is to sacrifice that which he loves most, a soul for a soul. And so he turns around, even shedding a tear, and throws Gamora over the cliff, which is striking because it means that despite all the bloodshed and war and the harsh upbringing, he really did care for his adopted child, but believed in the heroism of his quest even more. It creates a strong divide between Thanos and the heroes of this story, as Thanos was willing to sacrifice everything, even his family, to achieve his idea of peace. Meanwhile, the Avengers were not willing to sacrifice the Mind Stone and by extension Vision to stop Thanos until it was too late. Speaking of which...
Steve?
This is an incredible moment. There's no music, capturing the feeling of utter disbelief at what just happened. We've seen this song and dance so many times, so we naturally assume that the heroes will win by virtue of being the good guys, so to see them lose this badly serves as the ultimate reality check as we witness them disappear before our very eyes. It's a somber scene and a true testament to what was at stake throughout the entire movie. But then, the music comes back. It cuts to Thanos, still reeling from his wounds as he retreats from the battle before finally resting and watching the sun rise on a grateful universe. And the music ends on a happy note, because the revelation is that Thanos was actually the hero of this story all along. That's why he won. And in Endgame, we learned that he wasn't lying about any of his conquest afterwards, and even went as far as to destroy the Infinity Stones so they wouldn't tempt him. His motivations were real, his promises kept, and success almost absolute. It's very unlike, say, Ultron, who waxes philosophical a lot to excuse his actions, but makes it very clear that his only real motivation is his own ego and slanted worldview as opposed to any kind of greater good, which makes him feel a lot more, pardon the pun, robotic as a result. On the other hand, no pun intended, getting to know his motivation helped to humanize Thanos. It helped to make him feel like a real person. But that's actually what makes him and his actions even more frightening. Actually, you know what? I'm not done with Ultron. Ultron is the worst. I said he waxes philosophical, but that's not quite it. Pointless philosophy is half his dialogue. Every other time he opens his mouth, he starts yammering about evolution or God or peace or whatever, and I don't care because there's no conviction or real insight behind his words. He didn't get this worldview from any kind of life experience like Thanos did. He was just on Google for like 3 minutes and based it all on that. In essence, he sure does whine a lot. And I hate the way he's animated too. He's supposed to be a robot, but it's obviously animated with CGI and with like a real person doing the mouth movements, which causes his whole face to look just wrong. His lips should not be able to bend and move around in this way. He's not like Vision, who's a melding between machine and organic tissue. His face is made of metal. It shouldn't move like this. And as a result, his upgraded forms end up looking way worse than his weaker forms, which have no lip sync. And it's all especially strange because Marvel is some of the best CGI in the business. Like, Thanos looks amazing. I often forget he's CG. He looks a lot better in the animated adaptations, but on that note, the loosely canonical What If actually takes Ultron's douchiness even further. The hypothetical is what if Ultron won? So he gets Vision's body like he planned to and destroys Earth, but that wasn't enough. So then he gets all the Infinity Stones and destroys the entire universe, but that wasn't enough either. So then he goes and tries to destroy every universe there is. At least Thanos had the decency to stop at half of one universe. Oh my god. Fuck this guy.
Don't give me.
Do you want to know what pure evil is? When you imagine what pure evil looks like, you'd imagine it to look like a hellish, Lovecraftian monster that cannot be stopped or reasoned with. But, my friends, I have seen pure evil, and it's... well, on second thought, pure evil isn't quite the right term. He's not smart enough for that. There's something, not quite right about Glomgold. The DuckTales reboot gave a lot of characters a good makeover, like Gyro, Magica, and all the Disney Afternoon cameos, but boy did it take old Flinty to the extreme. He serves as the ultimate foil to Scrooge, the hard-working Scottish crazy-rich tycoon with an eye for treasure. And so Glomgold is crazier, greedier, Scottisher, and almost as rich, with a heart of flint and bones of goddamn steel. He is my absolute favorite part of the show. I don't think you can conceive of a more cartoonishly evil and over-the-top villain. The maniacal laughter, the tendency to shout his schemes out loud, the ridiculously overcomplicated evil plans, usually involving sharks somehow, and always with the same premise of trying and failing to upstage Scrooge McDuck. He tries to steal the prize jewel of Atlantis before Scrooge does, but then ends up grabbing the wrong one. He gets his hands on a time stopper and uses it to troll Scrooge, but then messes it all up when he's baited into explaining how he did it. He tries to beat Scrooge at golf. Then at the tail end of Season 2, he rounds up every other major villain from the series to take out Scrooge's family and steal his fortune, but then ends up losing all of his and their fortunes instead and pissing off all of them. And then, of course, there's his most iconic appearance, the Ballad of Duke Baloney, where Glomgold is shown to have suffered amnesia and becomes an honest fisherman with a new name. At first, you think that his beard was dyed black because of squid ink, and Duke Baloney is just some absurd name that his new sailor friends gave him, but no, because turns out, Flintheart Glomgold is the fake name, Duke Baloney is his real name, and he's actually super young. He's not Scottish Scottish either. He was born in South Africa, where Scrooge slighted him one day, so he dedicated his life to imitating him as much as possible, thus creating the Glomgold we know now. It's a spin on the typical people were mean to me, so now I'm evil backstory, but instead of feeling sympathy for Glomgold, you just can't help but be slack-shot at how petty he is. And his insane plan of just copying Scrooge worked. He's the second richest stuck in the world. He is the Bill Gates to Scrooge's Jeff Bezos, or reverse Flash to his Flash, the Luigi to his Mario. No wait, Luigi is way richer than Mario, scratch that. And all the while he's talking Scottishisms that will make the United Kingdom cry. Always talking about beating that bloke Scrooge McDuck at We Fancy Parlor Games for penny change and bragging rights in the Millionaires Club to prove he's got the biggest company for no other reason than to gloat. Meanwhile, the people around him try to carouse insane tendencies so it doesn't ruin
Why
the
do
reputation of
podcasts
the
talk
company.
on stupid shit like you're getting strong, aren't you? As if the recon's gonna be like
If anyone does not love the Lord Jesus Christ,
She turned into a big beast. Odin tried to do it in.
with Marcypants Reddish, we're gonna win the competition!
Oh, they're going to have to glue you back together in hell!
And imminently kick a ball. Let's get you out and raptive.
Pennywise. Born from the minds of scared children, Pennywise the Dancing Clown is the most horrifyingly nefarious villain I've ever come across. It loves killing people, but what it loves even more is screwing with them as much as possible. There are so many examples. There is practically no limit to what Pennywise can do to you. It can shapeshift, create illusions, teleport, basically anything you can think of, it can do. A being that can reach your fears and then bring your worst nightmare into reality is a terrifying concept for a monster. When I saw it Chapter 1 for the first time, I didn't get any sleep until the sun came up. And even like a month later when I saw it for the second time, I was having trouble getting to sleep. I just couldn't help but imagine Pennywise hiding in the corner of the room, waiting for the right moment to do something. Luckily for me, I had a flashlight by my side. There are very few monsters that manage to leave such an impact on me, and granted, with those other ones, I was much younger. The first two that come to mind are the Haunted Mask from Goosebumps and Slenderman, who are both terrifying as neither of them could be defeated in a straightforward manner, if at all, which applies to Pennywise as well. Because after all, when you're a kid, you have almost no chance of defeating the equivalent of an adult man. And even in Chapter 2, where all the characters are adults, it's still a hopeless situation, as Pennywise grows to a monstrous size and can kill any of them really easily. Fitting, as Pennywise is meant to be the literal embodiment of fear, like a general malevolent force that haunts the entirety of the town of Derry. And Pennywise is no slouch when it comes to manipulating its victims right into its claws. The famous drain scene where it tricks Georgie in reaching for his boat. The bleacher scene where it convinces Vicky that he can grant her wish, both of which result in the character's deaths. Or the time when it encouraged Henry Bowers to kill his own father before killing the Losers Club too, and then bringing him out of the insane asylum so he can try it again decades later. Or how about when it disguised itself as Georgie to torment Bill not once, not twice, but 3 times? Why? Why are you doing all this? I have come to rob all the women, rape all the men, and learn the peppermint twist. Man, imagine having such bad luck that you move on from having regular students as bullies to having an immortal demon as one. And so, it's only natural that after repeatedly trying to make the losers feel small, the story ends with a dancing demon getting a taste of its own medicine. After all, what could it possibly fear other than fear itself? Oh, there it is. I was wondering where this went.
And imminently kick a ball. Let's get you out and raptive.
When Count Bleck appears for the first time, it seems like the normal villain fanfare. Stop the villain, save the world, the end. But as the game continues, the true nature of Bleck is steadily revealed, as after every chapter we witness dialogue that details Bleck's backstory. How he fell in love, how he lost the person he cared most about, and how he used to be a normal person before being changed forever by an endless nihilism. Afterwards, he seeks out the Chaos Heart, symbolic of himself, how all he ever wanted was love, but now feels so empty that the only thing that can make him content is to destroy every last thing in existence. If I feel like nothing, then everything else should feel like nothing. The consequences of this doctrine really show during the game. In the background, the void is ever present, steadily getting bigger and bigger as the end of the world draws near. Lex says that when he destroys everything, he'll make a new world that's even better, but really intends to leave everything destroyed forever, symbolizing how he views a better world as no world at all. And then, when we travel to the eloquent and lively Sammer's Kingdom, we get to see the destructive effects of this outlook firsthand, as the void destroys everything and everyone, leaving nothing behind. Not even a single person. And when we make it to Count Bleck's castle and beat him, he does not try to run away, or continue to fight back. He simply lies on the floor and asks that you finish him off, believing that he doesn't deserve mercy after all he's done. The only way to stop the void is to destroy the Chaos Heart, and the only way to destroy the Chaos Heart is to kill the Count, according to him. So as Bleck lies on the floor, accepting his fate, Timpani, his lost love, wonders if this is really how it must end. Except, it wasn't the end yet. Dimentio, that son of a bitch, reveals himself to be the true antagonist of the game by taking the Chaos Heart for himself from the weakened Count Bleck. Throughout Super Paper Mario, you can see the seeds that Dimentio is not like Bleck's other minions, listening in on conversations he had no business hearing, asking the Count personal questions about his past, and even proposing an alliance with Mario right before the end. He fancies himself a showman, always talking and acting in a playful manner as if nothing that happens really matters anyway. A lot of the time, it's like he's not even trying to stop us, but rather just finds it amusing to watch us and others struggle. Like when he fried Fractale circuits to make it fight us when it was going to let us pass, or when he brainwashed O'Chunks and made him shout the names of random vegetables, or how at the time he straight up murdered Luigi and then the rest of the party later. That last one is especially unsettling. The way Dimentio's playful tone drops so suddenly before musing with himself about how now's the perfect time to kill him because no one will find them in the empty void of Stammer's kingdom. It's nothing short of chilling, and it only gets worse in the final battle, where Dimentio creates a disturbing new form comprised of the Chaos Heart himself and Luigi. It's so weird, but also really freaky at the same time. Super Dimentio is a creepy chimera, taking Luigi's normal look and then distorting it into his own image, emblematic of things to come. See, using the Chaos Heart, Bleck plans to destroy every world and leave them in ruin, but Dimentio, no, he plans to make perfect new worlds after they're all destroyed. And if they're anything like his new superpowered form, then it can only be assumed that his ideal universe is one where he is space, time, God, and the laws of physics, where everything is him. It's demented. Every time you beat him in a fight, he always plays it off like it's no big deal, as if no matter what happens, he's still one step ahead. After all, we did gather all the pure hearts and then thrash Count Bleck so he didn't have to, allowing him to swoop in at the last second and nab the Chaos Heart with ease, thus affording him total invincibility with the pure hearts all used up. It was only after the Count, or rather Blumiere and Timpani, finally reunited, their love rekindled, that the pure hearts were restored their energy and Dimentio's plans were no more. But then, even after being totally and utterly defeated, he unveils his final trick and makes it so that after his downfall, all worlds will still be destroyed anyway, out of spite. And so, finally righting his wrong, Sir and Lay join at the altar to banish the Chaos Heart once and for all. Not only to save all worlds, but because the Count finally found who he was looking for all this time, his life is no longer empty. Dimentio only ever cared about himself, but for Bleck, it was never him that was important. When Timpani disappeared, it was like he lost a part of himself, like without her, he simply could not exist. Light, darkness, chaos. And even if it had to end with the two of them ceasing to be to save all worlds, you can tell that the good Count could never have been happier to be wrong. Alright, you should all know the drill by this point. Before we get to number 1, I thought I may as well share some honorable mentions, because there's just a lot more... Uh-oh, looks like we've got an intruder on our hands, someone who is not supposed to be here, but is anyway. The boss is the nameless malevolent force that plagues the world of Just Shapes and Beats. And like the world of Just Shapes and Beats itself, its exact origin is completely unknown, and seems to have always existed. As when the game begins, the only three things that exist are the player, the pink hazards, and the boss. Which leads one to wonder if the boss is a product of the pink malevolence, or the source of it. Or perhaps they are both one and the same, but only became a force of evil after gaining sentience, much like the demon Aku. Either way, it has only one instinct: destroy, cause as much mayhem as possible while beating the snot out of as many things along the way. And then when it gets its paws on the world tree and takes a big swig of its energy, well... My, isn't that a beautiful smile? After being unleashed upon the world, the boss's status as a destructive force of nature becomes very real. The water loses its luster, the sky no longer bright and blue, and almost every living entity becomes a warped version of itself, with prolonged exposure to the malevolence, turning this world into something more disgusting. Look at the plant guys, look at how happy they are, but as soon as they touch that stuff, they become disturbing shadows of their former selves. And all the while, the boss just looks on from its great tower and shreds a sick rip. It is disheartening seeing firsthand what the boss has done in this world and all of your friends, which makes it all the more gratifying as you slowly wrestle back order and undo a lot of the damage until finally confronting the beast itself. The aptly titled Final Boss is among my favorite tracks in the entire game. At first, you're surrounded by a crowd of corrupted entities who attack you, and then you find yourself dramatically climbing up the tower while dodging falling rubble before eventually reaching the boss at the top. And then after you decrown the boss, it tries to take the tree piece back, only for it to get jammed in its head and turned into the plague personified, with fire cells and bugs bursting out of it with bouts of blood. Until eventually, the two entities perfectly merge together to make a monstrous being, with some of the most intense and claustrophobic attack patterns in the game. Just as everything else was corrupted by it, now the boss itself is getting warped by its own power. Ever since it emerged from that cave, things have only gone from bad to worse to terrible, until eventually peace seemed like a distant memory and victory impossible. And so when you finally do find a way to fight back, it's an amazing feeling. Like no matter how bad things may get, it'll always be possible to rise above it despite adversity. After all, it's not over yet. Anyway, now that that's done with, it's time for some honorable mentions. Kokichi from Danganronpa V3. Danganronpa is a series with a lot of really evil and really unlikable characters, so it is nothing short of a miracle that Kokichi ended up being the most enjoyable part of the whole series. He's always gleefully and nonchalantly lying and messing with the rest of the cast just for fun. He is the boy who cried wolf brought to its natural extreme, and always keeps you guessing as to whether he's being serious or not. And the fact that he's right there in the roster doing evil throughout the whole campaign makes him a way more compelling antagonist than the actual mastermind of the game. Rattlesnake Jake from Rango. He's a giant rattlesnake with a gun instead of a rattle. That is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I am legit pissed off that I didn't see this film as a kid. Maybe if I did, then I'd have more to say than just that he's badass. Because he is. Molstrom from Owlboy. I don't think a video game has produced an antagonist this menacing since... King Boo? Yeah. There's a lot of build-up to Molstrom that establishes him as being absolutely unbeatable, and that none of the characters have any chance against him if he were to show up. And you never properly fight him during the campaign because he's so strong that he can take you out in one shot. The danger this guy poses is very real. When he appears for the first time, Otis and Getty don't even try to run away, apparently out of fear. It just goes to show that when a villain seems absolutely invincible, they become a truly terrifying force. And speaking of which, Omni-Man from Invincible. Omni-Man is just a better version of Ego. Mr. E and Professor Pericles from Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. Mystery Incorporated was a very dark turn for the Scooby-Doo series, which was normally pretty lighthearted. But then you have the twisted reflection of Shaggy and Scooby polluting the water supply, creating genetic abominations, and even literally killing people. Yes, this is still Scooby-Doo. And the interactions these two have with each other range from abusive to very alarming.
This macabre herd of skull cattle you've created is costing millions of Destroidos money. My money. And I currently have 28 of my best scientists listed as presumed missing. No! Make that 29.
Though on a lighter note, I find it very funny that they made Mr. E fat and hairy, since he's supposed to be like the Shaggy character. Not so subtly implying that Shaggy will end up a similar way if he doesn't calm down with all the food and get a haircut once in a while. Okay, enough honorable mentions. It's time for the showstopper.
Who is doing this to us? And on this we must concur.
The dastardly, despicable, disturbingly inexplicable, and eminently kickable. That guilty rotten rat is
the Music Meister!
Tell me, what makes the villain of a story, any story really, so likable despite them being the bad guy? Many characters in fiction do horrible, absolutely reprehensible things, and they remain quotable, memorable, and beloved by fans despite all that. It can't just be because it's cathartic to watch them do bad things, rather I think it's because an interesting character is an interesting character regardless of their moral alignment. And because villains tend to be way less restricted in terms of what they can get away with when compared to heroes, it allows for some of the most fascinating, fun characters in all of fiction. And for my money, there is no villain that is better at making me want to return to a show again and again than the Music Meister from Batman, the Brave and the Bold.
Oh, I'm the Music Meister.
He's the Music Meister.
Everyone just fawns.
He's the Music Meister, and we are all his pawns.
The Brave and the Bold was already an amazing show for its action and the way it embraced a more campy tone, but the special episode Mayhem of the Music Meister takes this to a whole new level. It's a musical episode about a villain who can mind control people by singing, and they go absolutely bananas with the musical motifs and references. When the Music Meister is controlling people, they do dances and other moves as if they're part of a stage play. He changes into many different costumes throughout the episode, which all reference various music genres. And I love these designs too, they're so varied, but they always give the same color scheme of orange, purple, green, white, and gold. Plus, the M-Meister never loses those sick 8th note specs. Normally, I'd ask him where he got that awesome hat, but I'm actually quite satisfied with my current look, thank you very much. There's an especially amusing scene where the Music Meister is on his getaway device, which is shaped like a pair of music notes, and then it splits in half, with Batman riding the other one. And then the two of them bounce along electrical wires until their lines off a music sheet. The music, sung by Double M himself with some background from Black Canary, is incredible. The scope of these songs are huge. Big bands, enormous choirs, and stunning orchestras line these numbers, while being tied together by the Music Meister's booming voice. I Am the Music Meister makes her an amazing introduction and sets up his plan perfectly. Drives the spats, has tons of action and references, and goes through so many different styles, it's nuts. Death Trap has some really slick rhyme schemes and gives off a real sense of peril, even if only, which I didn't like at first for being a slow-paced duet, but grew to appreciate for the idea that the Music Meister loves Black Canary, but loves being evil even more. And then we get to the biggest number, The World Is Mine.
Well, I guess that's my cue. The Music Meister sings the song that the world wants to hear. The let's not fight, let's get along for your hypnotic property.
Oddly enough, in terms of character, the Music Meister may be the simplest one on this list. We've had villains with interesting morals, detailed motivations, complicated histories, and relatable thoughts, but the Music Meister, he just wants money. And he really loves being evil. I guess I could talk about how his insanely broken ability causes the power to go to his head and have him embrace his inner demon, but the character really is just a simple appeal. He's here, he's gonna grab the wallet out of your hand while you're buying a hot dog, and he's gonna have a great time doing it. And this whole musical extravaganza serves as an awe-inspiring showcase of the hammiest villain in a show full of hammy villains. The Music Meister's actions and mannerisms are so over the top that you simply can't help but be taken in by it all and just lose yourself in the music.
The Music Meister sings a song that the world wants to hear. Let's not fight, let's get along for our hypnotic frontier. The Music Meister is the man that the world shall obey. So do your job, steal all you can, while you're under his sway.
It's especially fitting that the Music Meister can take over the world so easily, since music is the universal language. And without the special pitch-canceling earplugs that Batman and Canary wear throughout the episode, the Meister would have been able to checkmate them instantly. As Team and Canary has their earplugs removed and instantly falls under his control, which causes the unthinkable to happen. Batman begins to sing. And so the Music Meister, completely dumbfounded, loses his grip on the world and his microphone as Batman punches him in the face. Classic.
Put a sock in it.
A truly incredible end befitting a truly incredible villain. He's suave, he's delightfully devilish, he's hilarious, he's extremely memorable, he can be quite threatening, his defeat is satisfying, his design is legendary, and on top of all of that, he's got an ear for music. So with all of that taken into account, I can confidently say that the Music Meister, in my opinion, is the greatest villain of all time.
I'm the Music Meister, and I'm here to settle the score.
Wow, you made it to the end. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this remaster, because if you didn't, then I just spent hours and hours of my time on a project that probably wasn't even worth it in the end, when I could have been doing something more productive instead. Something more productive. Alright, this ends now. Feel free to leave if you want. Come on, wake up.
Please.
Alright, that's the last loose end. Now I can go home.
No.
Oh, come on. What could I have missed? Huh?
No one will be Please keep all.
You posted on.
Where the hell is my pumpkin?
He's got no superpowers, he's just a flying rat. It's a good thing we got Arkham, cause he really drives us bats. Drives us bats, world's greatest detective. Drives us bats, foiling every evil scheme. He really drives us bats, bats, bats. He drives us bats.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Oh, you must be waiting for a teaser for the next major story arc. Well, I don't have that kind of foresight. I just sort of make this stuff up as I go along, so go.
He drives us.
Actually, I do have something to say.
Thanks. Well, I'll see you in the Q&A video. Go ahead and leave a question. I'll give you special treatment. Oh, and by the way, I'm a huge liar, so don't believe a word I say. Gold.
He drives us back.